Now, God goes on and says, hey, you think you are poor. I know your poverty, right? But in my eyes, you are rich. So this has nothing to do with money, friends. So I gave you a list of all the riches that is listed in the New Testament. Let's go look at them one at a time. All right. Romans 2 and 4. These are the riches. I should have wrote them down so you can see them all in one group. Here's the riches. And I'm just going to read those verses. We can read them in context, but for time's sake, well, Kevin, you said you don't worry about time, so let's not do that. All right. So God he just told everybody. He started off in chapter 1 saying, hey, look, you forgot God. And because you don't, here's the penalty for forgetting God. And he goes through this litany of, false religion coming in. When false religion come in, it leads to sexual immorality. And when sexual immorality comes in, it leads to the highest form of sexual immorality. What's that? Homosexuality. Okay, so it goes from forgetting God and replacing God with false religion. And that false religion could be anything. It can just be flat out idolatry of your family, worshiping your family over God. It can be anything, right? It can be worshiping, bowing down to some stone statue, anything. So religion, sexual immorality. Then the highest form of sexual immorality, which is homosexuality. You say, where are you getting that mess from? Folks, again, look, I love y'all. You ought to know by now. I don't just say things out of the blue. All you do is back up one chapter, and here it is right here in black and white. In black and white, the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against what? Ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth and unrighteousness. And what did they do? Because what they may have known God is manifest inside. God wrote the laws on your heart, for God showed it to them. For since the creation, that's it right there. God showed you creation. You ought to know the earth is sitting there hanging out on nothing. It's a spear. How in the world are people not falling off in the water? I mean, just all the stuff that goes on with just natural living. That's what he's saying right here. So you would know that God is powerful, all powerful, and is hard headed, and you don't have an excuse. Creation eliminates the excuse from anybody not knowing that there is a higher power, a God. Okay? But something happened. They knew God. They did not glorify him as the one true God. What did they do? They weren't thankful. And they became what? Here's that word again. Because they're not thankful, they became futile in their thoughts, meaning they became wicked and confused. And their thoughts were basically decayed. And their foolish hearts became darkened. Now, everything that comes out of that looks like this. Professing to be wise, they became fools. It leads to you being an absolute fool when it comes to God. You can be brilliant in the things of the world. When it comes to God, you're an absolute fool. What did they do? They changed the glory of the incorruptible God. What did they do? They made an image like the corruptible man and birds and four-footed animal and creeping things. What is that? That's religion. So they turned from God to religion. Then what happened? God punished them for that. He gave them up to uncleanness. What is that? In the lust of their own hearts to dishonor their bodies among one another. What is that? That's a sexual revolution. Because they serve the creature more than the creator. Then here's the next step. So religion, sexual immorality. And because of that, because of those two things, God gave them up again. Now notice, I want to show you something. They did something right here. They gave themselves over to a false god. When you do that, God gives them up. Okay? He gave them up. Then you cross that line. God gives them up again. So that's the second time God says, I gave them up. I gave them up. I gave them up. I gave them to vile passions. What in the world is that? Their women exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. What did they do? They became lesbians. Why he put the women first and didn't put the men first? Because women are the last line of defense. When your women turn, that's it. That's it. That's why he put them first. Was it a greater sin? No. It was more unlikely for women to do it than men. Men are perverted. Likewise, also, men leaving the natural use of women, burned in their lust one for another. Men with men committing what is shameful, receiving in themselves the penalty of their error. Okay, so what's he talking about? Homosexuality. Religion, sexual immorality, homosexuality. Now, look at the next step. So twice he said God gave them up. God gave them up. Look at this. Even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge. Why? Because they're in false religion. Because they're sexually perverted. And because they're debased in their sexuality. Homosexuality. Listen to this time. God gave them up. God gave them up. Third strike, God gave them over. Whoa. Whoa. To a debased mind. A debased mind? Yeah. It's a form of insanity. What in the world is that? Where people call evil good and good evil. Where people call men women and women men. A total flip in unnatural mind. Insanity. And what does that lead to? It leads to doing things that are not fitting. It doesn't fit where? It doesn't fit in the plan of God, friends. It's not going to make it to the next world. It's unfitting to God. Being filled. Listen, they are now filled with it. Can anything else get in? No. Why not? Because they're filled with it, friends. Filled. What would it take to get somebody like that saved? To take God. Why? Because they're filled. What are they filled with? All. How much? All. Are they partially filled? No, friends. Everything they do is unrighteous in the sight of a holy God. But they go to church, it's unrighteous. But they pray, it's unrighteous. But they fast, it's unrighteous. How much of it is unrighteous in the eyes of God according to the book? Forget what you think. What did God say? All of it. Doesn't matter what they did. And what does that look like? God now explains to you and I what it looked like. Sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters, haters of God. You say, I don't hate God. Yes, you do. So, no, I don't. Yes, you do. Who said that? God said that. He know your intent. Your heart is deceiving you. You see, you got a debased mind. Your mind is futile and your thoughts are darkened. Haters of God. Violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful, who knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are what? Deserving of death. Not only do they do the same, but they also approve those who practice them. They celebrate for it. They celebrate Pride Month. They celebrate DEI and all this other stupid mess. Friends, listen. Stay away from all that stuff. That's where it's coming from. All right. Anyhow, let's go back. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. Where were we? I'm so sorry. Oh, Romans 2:4. Here we go. He says, hey, don't despise what? God is rich. What are the riches? We're talking about the riches. He's told the church at Smyrna, you are rich. How? Here's the riches of God. Of God's what? Of God's goodness. God is rich in goodness. God is rich in forbearance. God is rich in long suffering. Okay? So that's one form of God's riches. Let's look at the next one.